Please stay tuned for our next segment, where we will delve into the impact of anti-drag legislation on drag performers and the broader LGBTQ+ community. We look forward to continuing this important dialogue with you all. Watch this.
They don't know nothing. I want to go back to a time when the music was wonderful. It was a part of my life. Sent me to the prom with my crinoline skirt on. Even if I did drive myself. I want to go back. I want to find those people that made that kind of music, you know, and I just want to tell them thank you. Thank you for giving us romance and mystery. I want to find Nat King Cole and Billy Eckstein and Marvin Gaye and Stevie Wonder and the Four Tops and the Temptations and the Pimps and Smokers. I want to find them, and I just want to walk up to them and say, you did it. You found that magic. I just want to, I want to touch old Teddy Pendergrass. And I want to tell him, thank you for saying, for all the things we've been through. You should understand, like I understand you. 'Cause babe, I know the difference between right and wrong. I ain't gonna do nothing stupid to break up our happy home. Oh, don't get so excited if I come home a little late at night, 'cause we only act like children when we argue, fuss, and fight. Oh, you don't know me by now. If you don't know me, you will never, never, never know me. No, you won't. Oh, sing it one more time for me. You don't know me by now. You never, never, never know me. Your heart and your soul and your mind and your body. I want to go back to a time when music made you feel like falling in love. Then one day I was riding down the expressway and this song came on the radio. I had to pull over to the side and stop, 'cause I felt like just getting out there. Oh, they finally got the message. They finally found the magic. I wanted to tell them thank you. Thank you, boys to men. I'm telling them one more time, we belong together, and you know that I'm right. Why do you play with my heart? Why do you play with my life? Said we'd be forever, said it never would die. How could you love me and leave me and never say goodbye? Oh, I can't sleep at night without holding you tight. Each time I try, I just break down and cry. Pain in my head, oh, I'd rather be dead. Spinning it all down and go. We gotta go. Why don't we go to the end of the road? Sing
Welcome back. I hope you all enjoyed the performance as much as I did. In this next segment, we will discuss the concerning rise of anti-drag legislation coming out of state governments and how these laws fundamentally clash with the American ethos. We are honored to have the COO of Safe Schools, who is also a pastor in Miami and an advocate for a pluralist society. Once again, Harold.
Thank you, Kai, for that introduction. And, I'm going to start off with a story. I came to this country when I was 7 years old. My parents put me in a little boat. We escaped Cuba, got picked up by a cruise ship, and we came into Miami a few days later. And one of the first things that shocked me was the diversity of people that was in the city. Miami is a very diverse city, and just beyond the food in the supermarkets that we didn't have in Cuba, beyond McDonald's, which I tried for the first time, which was great, beyond any of that, it was how diverse the city was. It wasn't just Cuban, it was people from all over Latin America, from Central America, from the Caribbean, from the United States, from up north, from Europe. And that really inspired me. It was something that I wasn't used to in Cuba, because in Cuba, even though in Cuba we have diversity, it's very much just Cubans. And going through school, I went through the school system here, to the public school system. I was always challenged by the people that I met to get beyond any preconceived notions that I had, to get to know their true selves, to get to know who they really were. And I had I was very intentional as I went through middle school and high school to always have friends that were different from me, to kind of get all the rebels and all of the people that didn't quite fit in, to get all the nonconformists, and that was my group of friends. And let me tell you, there was so much innovation in that diversity. There were so many things that we could talk about. There were, I learned about so many different movies, so many different animes that I wouldn't have learned before. And I think that diversity made me who I am today, and is what inspired me to really be into, to get into theology, to get into seminary. And in seminary, I took all that with me. So what's happening today with all these anti-drag legislations and these trans bills that we're seeing is fundamentally against what I believe is the ethos of this country. We had our, right now we have "In God We Trust." But before that, it was "E pluribus unum," which is Latin for "out of many, one." And that is what I truly believe of who we are. This country was founded, for all of its failures, for all of the mistakes that we've done, for all of the things that we have a lot to look back into history and really, look at ourselves and try not to ever do that again. This country has that ability to bring people together, to allow anyone from anywhere in the world to come here and make a name for themselves, to bring in the diversity and inject that diversity into the American spirit. And what's happening now is very much anti that. And you spoke earlier about what was happening, why Florida? Why is this happening here in Florida? And I think that, there has been said that this country is a great experiment. It's a great experiment that anyone can come here and be their authentic selves and truly try to change the system. And Florida is becoming the great experiment for a subculture that's trying to take all of that away from us. That's trying to be something that I truly believe that majority of America is not. And they're claiming to be the majority. And that I think is very much wrong.
Wow.
Well, I take this bill very personally. So my alter ego, my drag name, is Miss Finesse. And Miss Finesse was an integral part of me coming to terms with being a trans woman. As Miss Finesse, I was on PBS Check Please South Florida as a food critic, and I actually won Best Food Critic in their 10-year anniversary, so I'm really proud of that. I've been on red carpets interviewing A-list celebrities at film festivals, and I was celebrated. I was accepted. How would it be now? How would the climate be now? And, you know, these bills, they bring it back to the binary. You know, what were you at birth? So for me, it was male, right, at birth. But how I present myself now, if this bill passes, can I be arrested just for being myself as I am right now? What if I plan to sing? I've been working with my voice coach on creating a cabaret show. So now this could limit, where can I do that? You know, in the state of Florida. I think as far as what you were saying, Harold, about diversity in Florida, there is a lot of diversity in Florida. And I feel as if Florida is being created to be a model state for the future. And that worries me a lot. Because from the outside, probably to a lot of Americans, this looks like a success state. But at what cause? At our cause. So I really worry about our drag performers. Not all drag performers identify as trans, but there are quite a few drag performers that identify as trans, and I can speak of that because that is part of my life. That is part of my journey as Miss Finesse. I worry about that.
I would like to share that for me and my relationship with drag is very symbiotic. It definitely has a core part of saving me in the sense that one, it gave me rhythm. That was the first thing, and as a light skin, that's a big theme. But after giving me rhythm and showing me this queer eternal universe where you can really love your alter ego, how do I say, besides my own personal story, I think it's very interesting to me that people forget drag is very fundamental within humans' history. For example, in World War II, they were in the trenches throwing on drag shows and performances to up the livelihood as to keep the morality rate while they were in the trenches during the war. And we've also had it within Shakespeare when women weren't allowed to perform within the scene or whatever. So I think it's very interesting that something that is so powerful and has so much education history to it, it's trying to be took away from us as if it's not its own professional field. And yeah.
No,
and also, what is the definition of drag? You know, there's so many non-binary queer youth. What is the definition of drag? This is just an everyday expression. People who don't subscribe to male or female binaries that have been placed on us by society.
Well, and gender itself is performative. We perform with our gender. We put on these clothes. We go out into the world projecting this one thing that we are. So these attacks on the drag community is really an attack on self-expression. It's an attack on people being allowed to be free in this country enough to express their authenticity, to express who they truly feel inside, and to give hope to other young people to also be themselves, to also express themselves fully, no matter what. It's not just a queer thing. It's not just a drag thing. It is an expression of who we are and being free to fully express ourselves. And that is very threatening to people that are not allowed to do that, or that deny themselves that ability and want to impose that on everybody else.
Definitely. I also want to remind all of our virtual and in-person participants that we are accepting questions on the topic. And with that, I want to ask the panelists, why should students care about drag queens? Why should they support drag queens?
Oh no, please.
So I have a friend who actually does drag that goes to school in Barry. And I actually asked him, like, why is this like such an important thing? You know, and in his words, he said, without drag, I don't know where I would be. So it's like, this is their life. Like, this is what keeps them going. And I'm not mad at them. If this is what keeps you going and I'm all for it, do that. As long as they're not harming no one. They just want to live. They want to entertain. they want to make their coin. They it's just a part of them that they can't let go. And if we strip them away of that, what are they left like? You know, it's that's why I feel like we should support them. Something they truly love.
There's something called like the Batman effect, where you put on this costume and it allows you to distance yourself. And it gives you the space to kind of reorganize and look at things from a new perspective and kind of give yourself this separation. And I think that's a huge part of it, and why drag is so important for gender identity conversations is it gives the performers this space to kind of think about their own gender expression through this other lens, but it also gives all of the audience this opportunity to really try and grapple with what is gender expression and what is this gender performance, and so where do those boundaries lie, and it gives us like a starting point for these conversations. And so I think it's really important as students, as we're trying to educate ourselves, and as you said before, college is a place to kind of not just get a paper at the end, but to grow as an individual. And so these are places in which we can grow as individuals and good starting points for those conversations. And so as students, it's our duty to protect these spaces where we can do that.
For me in general, it hurts because I see as drag being a gateway bridge between the allies in us, as far as like drag is a place where everybody can come together and like, you know, see things you've never seen before, learn stuff you've never learned before. That's where it hurts in a general sense. And on a personal sense, I think it's also important to remember that queerness looks differently for Black and brown folks, in the sense that for what some people consider drag culture, something that we've been doing amongst our, how do I say, celebrations and ceremonies for generations around campfires. And so for me, drag is my way to present my ancestors and where I come from and celebrate my rhythm and my beat to the drums. So, you know, when people want to make anti-drag laws, they're also taking away a bit of my history and a bit of where I come from. Because again, it's not, I like to say that I celebrate in the art form of drag culture, but I am not a drag queen. So to take that away, it affects what is ancient and what is also future for me.
Yeah. So I really want to pose this question. Why is it, do we think that DeSantis considers drag to be grooming? If anyone wants to comment on that.
I feel like, because I've always seen when they said that queerness in general is grooming, and from my Black background, like in the Black community, we tend to ignore the pedophilia or anything that happens within like the family and things like that. But we see it as, oh, my child is going to be gay. That is an issue. It's like they see it as we're trying to attack young students or young kids or young minds. We're trying to convey them into this sex symbol when that's all they see queerness as sex. And it's like, we do more than that. We're activists, we're teachers, we're politicians, we're everywhere. We're everything that we're inspiring. We're not trying to inspire anyone to be nothing dealing with sexual activity or anything like that. They see it as that. Why? I have no clue, but that's what it's always been associated with. But when it comes to real life issues, they don't care about it.
And I think they're utilizing lies, right, about the community that other people don't know because they haven't been in queer spaces. They don't know about our history. So they're just campaigning on lies to scare people, because you can either support drag queens and be a pedophile, or you can be with us, right? They don't give you more choices to learn about the queer community or anything. So I think it's just part of that campaign that they're doing. I can tell you that even just going out to dinner over the past few months with my family and my trans friends, the conversation at the table next to us, we overhear them talking about trans youth and drag queens. It is on the minds of everybody in Florida, and it's just being like pushed in the media so hard that people are full of the lies. They just don't know the truth about our community.
Just don't know the truth. So Erin, I'm going to pick on you. I was actually just coming to pick on you. Yeah, so what are your thoughts on drag?
Yeah, I guess 2 points to make. That, in the 1930s, when President Franklin Delano Roosevelt was seeing the rise of Hitler in Germany and Mussolini in Italy, he said those overseas who are trying to restrict the rights of human beings in the name of social control call it a new order. It's not new and it's not order. And I'm thinking about that a lot these days because what they're doing is nothing new. Right? They're claiming to be about protecting the kids and all of these things. They're not about that. And they're also on to nothing new, right? Like I said, Anita Bryant in the 1970s and 80s went on this crusade to try to fire, she called it the Protect the Children campaign, right? This is an ancient prejudice because they don't know what people who are different are. And so they fear it, which gets into the second point, which if you really think about it, it's extremely weird that they're so preoccupied with the sex lives of LGBT people, and that's the only prism they have to view us with. Like, it's really kind of creepy. And it's worth mentioning that, like, why is it that when you think of LGBT kids, you're thinking of sex? Like, doesn't that make you kind of weird? But that's the only way they have to do it. And because they're it's so unknown, and I think for a lot of them too, and it's worth mentioning this, there's a lot of internal confusion, right? Whenever you get these scandals and it's someone who claims to be the most moral, anti-LGBT, protect the children, those are the ones you end up with the scandals, and they get caught with a male prostitute or whatever. And so I think for a lot of them, they don't know how to control their own feelings. They haven't been able to live a life that's authentic, and so they're inherently afraid of what's different. And rather than process it in healthy ways like drag shows, which are about love and acceptance, they need to call that evil and dark, because for some of them, they see something in themselves that they've tried to shut down unsuccessfully, and so other people can't have the freedom that they can't.
Thank you. Now, what can we actually do to support our drag community?
Tip, give them their coin when they perform it.
Yeah.
Yes. Come up with the ones.
Come up with the 20s, baby. For
I feel
sure.
like, support. Like, there's a lot of drag shows, places, events that happen here in South Florida alone. I feel like go support. Like they said, give them the coin when they're walking around, flipping, twirling, splitting. Give them the money. Like, don't, the same way you would go to the strip club, act like it's a strip club. Give them your money. Support them because they are trying to make a living just as you're trying to make a living.
Mm-hmm.
We got go support them. They're not doing it for their health. I mean, well, maybe they are, but like some, support. That's go support, watch, give the coin.
And so much of what we said has been about this concept of the unknown, and they don't understand our community, and that's why they're afraid of it. And so the next step to helping them come to our side would be helping in that education, I think. And so I think speaking up when you hear these conversations and providing kind of this insight into the history and the benefits of this community, I think would be really important as well.
Yes.
I think it's important to support our drag community now and thereafter. I'm the entertainment director for My Hollywood Pride, and at any Prides, drag is a huge part of celebration. So what happens if this law passes? No more drag queens in Pride? I mean, that's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah.
So we'll cross that bridge if that happens. So it's important for us to stand up now, because drag queens are, being a drag queen myself, we're pretty fierce, and it takes a lot to be in the forefront as a drag queen. So we really need to support our drag queens however we can, as people, not just as drag queens, as people.
And if you have friends and you hear them talk negatively about drag queens or talk negatively about all this nonsense, and you know them and you feel comfortable with them, and you know that they're just hearing, like Ashley said, a one-sided view of all of this, just invite them to a drag watch party. Put on RuPaul's Drag Race and just show them that this is not something scary. Me myself, when I first came out, I used to be very much almost afraid of drag queens, because like what Aaron said, their authenticity, their ability to just be their authentic self for someone that was just coming out was threatening to me. And I threw myself at that world because I wanted to not be afraid, and I wanted to see what was being activated in me that I was responding to when I saw a drag show, when I saw drag queens. And my friends invited me to RuPaul's Drag Race parties, and that was something. And I went to drag shows, and that really changed my perspective.
All right.
And I'd like to say something that is not mentioned a lot in the community, but we have a lot of folks who are older trans women, like 50 plus, that have been performing drag most of their life as their main source of income. And so this would severely limit their ability to take care of themselves. There aren't retirement plans for drag queens, and there aren't a lot of affirming employers for older trans women or for the trans community in general. So I think that we need to be very aware that that's an especially like vulnerable population that really wasn't even meant to survive, right? During the AIDS crisis, and people didn't expect to live into their 50s. And now we as a community really have a responsibility to make sure that they're taken care of.
100%.
Yep.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Lara are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out television network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus community.